Mutual hostility is nothing new in Greek-Turkish relations. The two countries have been at loggerheads for decades over territorial and maritime claims in and over the Aegean Sea. This year, the situation has been particularly tense, with some experts even expecting a military confrontation between the two countries. My name is Simona Scotti from Topchubashov Center, and today's guest is Vassilis Nedos, a geopolitical expert from Greece and defense and diplomatic correspondent for Kathimerini, a leading Greek newspaper. He will shed some light over the ongoing tension. Mr. Nedos, thank you for being with us today. First of all, I would like to ask you if you could provide for an unprepared audience a short overview of the current tensions between Turkey and Greece. What are the origins of these tensions?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation. Your question is very interesting, and it could be answered in a lot of ways. So I will make a short overview of the current tensions. There is a slow but steady deterioration of the relations between Greece and Turkey that starts after the attempted coup against President Erdogan in July 2016. In the beginning, it was the refugee crisis. Afterwards, issues that had about the Aegean were also raised. Afterwards, the Turkish-Libyan memorandum on November of 2019 signed by the government of Fayez al-Sarraj in Tripoli and President Erdogan in Ankara was also seen from the Greek standpoint as a very rapid increase of tension from the side of Turkey. And in the summer in 2020, there was the February, March 2020, just before the beginning of the lockdown because of the coronavirus. There were tensions on the land border on Evros, northeastern Greece, between Turkey and Greece, when a group of migrants supported also by the Turkish government, a decision to open the borders, created a tension that led to a stalemate. So it was a land crisis. And then we had the Oruç race crisis, as it is widely known, which was a standoff between the fleets of Turkey and Greece, something that took place between August of 2020 and early November 2020, when we even had an accident at the time when a Greek frigate clashed with a Turkish frigate. It was just material damage and no one was harmed. And actually, it was in the beginning of the crisis, and even after that, tensions stayed there for a period of time. Now, the latest tensions for the latest, let's say, series of problems in the Greek-Turkish relations arose when Prime Minister Mitsotakis addressed the Congress, and from the Turkish point of view, this was seen as an attack against Turkey. Of course, the Greek side vehemently denies that. We even saw the comments of President Erdogan against the Greek government in the United Nations Assembly last September. Further deterioration of the relations came with overflights of Turkish UAVs, mostly Bayraktars, but also F-16 jets over inhabited islands and islets, uninhabited islets. So this is also seen as a heightening, as a rise of tension, of the tensions. And I would say that the last episode is the second memorandum that was signed between the government of Turkey and the administration of the appointed prime minister of the transitional government in Tripoli, Al-Beiba in Tripoli, which purportedly gives the right to Turkey and the TPAO to conduct research in the exclusive economic zone of Libya in a delimitation that was agreed solely between the governments of Tripoli and the Turkish government. From the Greek standpoint, this is illegal because this agreement, even the first agreement between Tripoli and Ankara, was not ratified as international treaties must be by the Libyan parliament. You very well know that right now the government in Tripoli and the parliament that is stationed at the east of the country have no real connection between them. And actually, we are still waiting to see if the UN mandate about transition into elections will happen. So, to answer your last question about if this is a continuation of the 2020 crisis, I would say that this is pretty much a crisis that has never ended. And the very interesting detail here is that even though in Athens everyone was prepared for a reduction of tension after the meeting of President Erdogan and Prime Minister Mitsotakis at Istanbul last March, and because of the war in Ukraine and the fact that NATO must appear as a concrete alliance against Russian aggression, this hasn't happened. This is worth noting.
Thank you for your answer. Now I would like to talk about the relations between Greece and the United States. So the United States has kind of been shifting the eastern border of NATO from Turkey to Greece. And the support of the United States to Greece against Turkey has bigger geopolitical implications in the region. So how is the US policy view in Athens?
Well, that's a very interesting question, even though I would divide my answer in two different ways. One thing is the Turkish-American relation, and the second one is the Greek-American relation. I'm not sure that those two are necessarily connected. And what I mean by that is that apparently, because of the problems that exist between Ankara and Washington, the United States are hedging, are trying to, let's say, have access to infrastructure, but also create ways of keeping NATO independent of any, let's say, problems at the US-Turkish relations. I think that the port of Alexandroupoli and the fact that US ships are unloading their troops and armaments that are heading towards Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, and further to the eastern flank of NATO, Poland. And the fact that this alternative route has been working very efficiently since the eruption of the war in Ukraine. As you know, the Montreux Convention does not allow the shipment of military material through the straits when there is a war going on. So this has functioned very well for the Americans. Apparently, you know, Greece has signed and ratified last year, a little bit more, 14 months, I think, a renewed mutual defense cooperation agreement with the United States that allow U.S. presence, U.S. military presence in the airports, in some airports, some battle wings, and also camps of Hellenic land armed forces. There is also very good cooperation in the special operations forces sector as well. So I would say that the improvement of the Greek-American strategic relationship is partly because the U.S. is hedging against the possible deterioration of the relationship between Turkey and the United States. But U.S.-Turkish relationship is a completely different thing. As we have seen in the last few days, Americans have an issue with Turkey not being very engaged in terms of sanctions against Russia. We also had those announcements by both President Erdogan and Vladimir Putin on the energy hub on the European part of Turkey, on Thrace. There is that agreement for the nuclear station in Akuyu and possibly a second or a third one in Turkey. There is the S-400 story. Let's not forget that Turkey was ousted from the F-35 program, not because there was some improvement of the Greek-Turkish relationship, but because Turkey accepted, purchased, and deployed on its ground S-400 Russian systems that are completely non-interoperable for security reasons with NATO systems. So I think that, of course, Greece has invested on its relationship with the United States for security reasons, among else. But I would say that Greece is just a number of priorities on the discussions that are happening between Washington and Ankara. In the previous even days, we had two meetings of Ibrahim Kalim, the presidential spokesperson, and the national security advisor Sullivan. Officials from U.S. Treasury traveling to Ankara and Istanbul. So it is a relationship that stands on its own merits, and we should not be forgetting that before the S-400s, I would say that the U.S.-Turkish relationship was a paradigm of a functioning paradigm of how state relations can work on the field of reciprocity. So the Americans, the United States, accepted that. And we should not also be forgetting that in terms of leaders, okay, now the Biden administration, the Biden actually, the White House is not on the same page with Erdogan, but the previous White House, Donald Trump, was feeling very comfortable of being around Erdogan.
Thank you. Greece enjoys the support of another Western and NATO power. I'm talking about France. So to what extent has the cooperation between Greece and France developed in terms of military and politics? And what are the reasons behind the interest of France in the Eastern Mediterranean?
Now, on the first part of your question, I would say that the Franco-Greek political and military cooperation is not a new thing. France and Greece have been having an amicable relationship for decades, for 2 centuries, I would say, of the Greek statehood. France and Greece were, very close with each other, especially on political terms. So it's nothing new. Of course, we have quite important military deals that happened between Greece on the naval level to build French frigates in French shipyards for the Hellenic Navy, and also Rafale jets and advanced weapons that are joining are together with this airplane, sub-strategic missiles and so on, and also an agreement of defense and of mutual aid in case of any threat against the soil of any of the two countries. That let's say stipulated the latest this very latest I would say cooperation between Paris and Athens. Now, I think that France has a strategic approach on how European Union should be generally postured in the region, not only in the East Med, but in general, and how it will acquire a strategic depth by itself. Right now, the United States Army, as we already see that in Ukraine, is the main guarantor security provider in Europe. Of course, neither France or any other in Europe wants that to change, but they would be much more comfortable with a more independent strategic outlook for Europe. And this also contains also, of course, defense. So I believe that main interest of France in the East Mediterranean is exactly keeping that the European approach on projection of power in regions that are within European Union, because we should not be forgetting that the Aegean Sea and the East Mediterranean are part of the broader European architecture, and we have been seeing gradual changes by countries that were a little bit different in the past, like Germany.
Thank you. So next year, elections will take place both in Turkey and in Greece. Rallying national sentiments could help Mitsotakis and Erdogan secure their win. Do you think that the election factors had an influence in this crisis? And in case the right-wing forces change, would this contribute to a de-escalation of the tensions, or does this go beyond mere electoral logic?
Well, of course, in Greece, of course, the ruling party is also, trying to work with. I repeat a little bit, if you can. So, of course, in Greece, the ruling party, Nea Demokratia, is exploiting what's happening with Turkey. I think that for Erdogan, this is much more important since nationalist sentiments in Turkey run much higher than they do in Greece, and I would say that because of the presidential system in Turkey and the fact that the election, that the president has to, win 50% of the vote. So it's much more different than Greece, where the absolute majority percentage is about 14% less than that. In Greece, you can have a one-party government with 36.5%. It's a whole different political environment. So with Erdogan having a problem also with his main ally and main partner, which is Devlet Bahçeli, having diminished prospects of getting re-elected. I think that all this nationalist rhetoric serves this purpose. Now, I believe that my personal point of view is that even if the elections take place with no impediments in Turkey and in Greece as well, because let me start by saying something first for Greece in terms of the election cycle. Because of the election system, the first round of elections probably will be held probably in May or June, somewhere there, very close, of course, to the Turkish elections, which are programmed for June 2023. It's quite probable that they will not produce a result, and we will have to go on a follow-up second election in order to have a government. And even then, there may have to be serious negotiations between parties to form some kind of a coalition. So this is one thing. Now, Greece is a status quo player in the region, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change if we have a change of government, which I don't believe that is the case, as at least the polls indicate at this point. Now in Turkey, I believe that the tensions will sustain because Turkey has a different point of view about its position in the region. It sees itself as a regional power. It sees itself as a power that can be a bridge between the East and the West. There is also a very clear Eurasian understanding of some issues, while in Greece there is no such approach because for historical, of course, and political, geographical geopolitical reasons. So I think that that feeling of that exists in the ruling elites and administration in Ankara that Turkey has to have a bigger footprint in the region. This is going to stay. So, the main problem, and I said that already in my first response to you, the main problem is, at least from the Greek point of view, and I think that this is also a political problem for Turkey as well, is how can the two countries sit on the tables and negotiate on their long existing disputes and differences with Turkish-Libyan memorandum on the table. I think that this is, the main no-go factor from the Greek side. So if somehow, with a magical wand, I don't know, after the elections, there would be a government in Ankara that would be willing to discuss for the Turkish-Libyan memorandum, and there is a steady and stable government in Greece, then we could have some proper ground to discuss on de-escalation.
Finally, I would like to ask you if you consider that there is any real possibility of a full-fledged war between the two NATO allies. And in case of a real confrontation, do you think that it would be limited to some clashes, to some border clashes in some rocky islands, or would it spiral into something bigger? And which kind of implications would this have for the geopolitics of the region?
Well, this is the million-dollar question. Theoretically, this is not a probability because a full-fledged war between two NATO members would immediately mean the end of NATO. It would be not the brain death of NATO, as once President of France Emmanuel Macron said, but it would be physical death. No NATO could exist if two allies went to war with each other. Now, your question contains also part of the answer that the experts in Greece are providing about if this is going to be limited in a couple of rocky islands or to something bigger. The Rocky Island, which they call it the hot incident in some rock in the Aegean, could happen. This is something that is on the table because of what happened in 1996 and the EMEA crisis, where we had again the standoff of the armed forces of the two countries, and the clash was did not happen because of a U.S. intervention. So I think that right now, remember at the time, the rhetorics that come from Ankara nowadays, because this is something I must underline, that starting from President Erdogan himself, and there is a rhetoric that is followed by all his officials, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Defense, other lower ranking officials. We have that this threat that we may come one night, or that Greece should be very careful and demilitarize the islands, otherwise the sovereignty of the islands is disputed. This rhetoric is something that we did never have to face in the past, and not in this level, not in this intensity, and not in this frequency. This happens on a daily basis. The previous week, I'm talking about the ministerial summit of NATO. There was a meeting between the ministers of national defense of Greece and Turkey, Nikos Panagiotopoulos and Hulusi Akar. There is a very good ambience between these two officials. Even the let's say the press leaks and the announcements that were given on both countries, Turkey and Greece, were very well weighed, very balanced, very careful. And the next day, there was again a repeat of rhetorics, not from Hulusi Akar, but from other officials. So, you know, I think that no one wants to imagine that there could be a full-scale war between Greece and Turkey. And to answer to your theoretical question on what the impact would be, I think that the impact would be catastrophic for the region as a whole. It could be a disaster for NATO. It would, of course, be a disaster for both countries, because we're not talking about Turkish incursions in the north of Syria or northern Iraq. Greece has professional, very well armed and with very sophisticated weapons armed forces, with an air superiority over the Aegean as the years go by, and with, of course, a very well-trained personnel. So this would be a war that would be devastating for both countries. And since both countries have the ability to achieve strategic hits against each other, I think that, you know, a Greek-Turkish war would be something really bloody, and no one wants to see that in the eastern, southeastern flank of NATO. And of course, it would lead to a rapid collapse of the regional order, because we must remember that Cyprus would definitely be a part of Turkish intervention of some kind. I really hope that we remain in theory at this point, and I would like to conclude by saying that there is, still a lot of space and a lot of time to somehow find a common road and issues that could be dealt with on a diplomatic level, and to be negotiated by both countries with open minds, but at the same time with respect to the sovereignty and the sovereignty rights of each others.
Okay, Mr. Nedos, thank you for your time. Thank you for answering our questions and for your insightful analysis. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.